Greetings, and good evening. Happy Friday to you all. Welcome to another episode that is going to be fire and engaging as all get out to the round table. Today is Friday, October the 20th, 7th, 2023. Bonsoir, ça va? My name is Drew, and I am one of your co-hosts for the round table, but I am getting ready to kind of break down how tonight's episode is going to go. And I am definitely looking forward to what is going to be not only a fire episode, an engaging episode between myself and the audience, but I am definitely looking forward to some deep dish analysis of how this weekend is going to go both in the National Football League and in the NCAA. Again, welcome to everyone for joining us on another episode of the Roundtable. My co-host Griff is not joining us tonight live. He is engaged in other activities, sharing his thoughts and his experience with a bunch of great Americans down there somewhere in Texas. So know that, Griff, you are with us in spirit. You have shared who you believe is going to win this weekend based on the games that we're going to talk about tonight. And we're just going to see how accurate Griff is based on these selections. So let us break down how tonight's episode is going to go real quick. Right, knowing that we do not have a live in-person co-host dialogue with me, I'm going to dialogue with the viewing audience. That means that your commentary is now going to be seen as an off-camera co-host. So the thoughts that you share, the dialogue that you share based on the games that we are discussing at that particular time, you just might be my co-host, and we select your question or your comment to be shared after I provide my analysis. You'll be Griff's stand-in, so to speak. So instead of creating all of the rigmarole to get you on camera, we're just going to use your words, your commentary, and your questions as that back and forth, that feedback, that maybe I am not seeing it from the right perspective, and you have a little bit more insight as to why you believe I'm talking out of my dingleberries, and or you are going to support my point. All right, so we are looking forward to what is week 8 of the NFL and week 9 of the NCAA. And ladies and gentlemen, the heart of October football is upon us, and it is getting very, very interesting. So let's get into it. Starting off the big show, the NFL, Thursday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills welcome the NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, up to Buffalo. This was a game that I have to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, that I was a little surprised that it ended up turning out the way that it ended up turning out. Why? Because we got Baker Mayfield leading a very defensive-minded Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who many, I know I being one of them, did not give them the credit coming into this season that they were actually going to be competitive not only in the NFC South, but across the NFL. Well, everybody had the Buffalo Bills, right? High on their list of possible teams to make it to the Super Bowl. And early season success, along with a little bit of early season struggle, has kind of deflated the hot air or the hopes and the dreams that everybody had about the Buffalo Bills. They welcomed in a 3-3 team that is still unproven. Yes, they are defensive-minded. Yes, they have some very good defensive players on their team that is always going to keep them in the game. Yes, they have a top 10 receiver in Mike Evans and Goddard and a receiving core, but we have Baker Mayfield leading this team. Now, on the opposite side, we have Josh Allen, who is supposed to be a superstar. And we have a running game led by James Cook, sprinkled in with Latavius Murray. And on the outside, you have some superstars in Diggs and Davis and Dillon. Tight end. Josh usually takes it upon himself to do too much or do what is needed to help his team get a victory. That happened last night, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers performed better than most people expected. Why? Because they were one Hail Mary pass away from not only beating Buffalo, but beating Buffalo in Buffalo on a short week with Baker Mayfield as the starting quarterback. So the question is, are the Buffalo Bills really good enough to make a deep run into the playoffs? And after 8 games, we have some evidence as to whether or not we truly believe the Buffalo Bills are who they say they were, as Dennis Green, the late great Dennis Green, once said. And whether or not Josh Allen is that guy. I don't believe Josh Allen is that guy this year. Here's the reasons why. The Buffalo Bills are 5-3. They did beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is a very good defensive team last night. And at this point in the NFL season, it is just win, baby. You would love to have style points. You would love to have your team cruising. But to be honest, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were right there with a Super Bowl contender. And we still don't believe that Tampa Bay is a legitimate playoff contender. We don't believe that Tampa Bay Buccaneers can make some noise in the NFC playoffs this year. So why was Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills not take care of business in the way that we expect them to? They had an anomaly, in my opinion, when they blew out the Miami Dolphins several weeks ago. It was said more about the proficiency gap that the Miami Dolphins have than what Buffalo actually brings to the table. I don't see Buffalo as continuing to ascend. This is going to be something that we have to keep an eye on. So, with that being said, you say, okay, Troy, we will start with Troy's analogy that Baker Mayfield looked like he was playing with a. That is not the case. No, Troy, I'm gonna have to push back on you. For the first 3 quarters, yes, right. Baker Mayfield was not very effective. Baker Mayfield was not very successful. Baker Mayfield, if you look at his stats, he had a very good game. And again, he was one play away from walking out of Buffalo with a dub. If Goddard had or Goodwin had found the ball in the lights, that would have been a successful Hail Mary at the end of that football game. And Buffalo would have walked out of that stadium with an L, and all of the questions today would have been, what is really going on in Buffalo? We have some serious issues between Josh Allen and the offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. I don't believe Ken Dorsey is the actual person to lead that offense from the booth. And it is what it is at this point. But you have far too many more good teams in the AFC for Buffalo to continue playing with how they're playing. So enough talking about Buffalo. They have 10 days to figure it out. Their schedule does not get any lighter, as we would say, right? But I'm happy that they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, moving on to the next game. This weekend's actions, ladies and gentlemen, we have a boatload of big games that are on the slate. And you have some teams that is either make it or break it time as we hit into this mid-season stretch. Right? And none bigger than the 3-3 Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Santa Clara to take on the 5-2 San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers opened this season up in a fashion to where they were everybody's early season pick to make it to the Super Bowl. And they still could be everybody's early season pick to make it to the Super Bowl. But we said at the very beginning of the season, we said that injuries are obviously going to play a part. And to key players and or during key times of the season, that was going to separate the good teams from the great teams. And we are one call away from either being ascending or one call away from being descending. And the San Francisco 49ers find themselves at that crossroad right now this weekend. Why? Because our young quarterback, who has really shown himself to be very good, who has shown himself to be a legitimate NFL starter, Mr. Irrelevant no more, and has taken ownership of the San Francisco 49ers. He has taken ownership of that offense. He has taken leadership of that team. Now, he is currently going through something that he has never experienced as a professional quarterback, a 2-game losing streak. Why? Because the San Francisco 49ers have somewhat fumbled their responsibility as that dominant defense. The offense can only do so much with all of those weapons. Now that you have key players dinged up with Trent Williams, you have Deebo Samuels, who is still going to be out. Now your starting quarterback is entered into concussion protocol. No, Purdy is not playing. We have Sam Darnold, who is going to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers this weekend as they welcome the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals. Have they found themselves? What's up with the defense, Troy asks? Yeah, they do look Raider-ish. And we'll cover that here in a minute after I go in and break down whether or not Cincinnati can actually travel to San Francisco and come out of there with legitimately Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon. That entire offense, right? They are somewhat coming into midseason form. Since we're heading into that midseason stretch, the Cincinnati Bengals have historically, in the young career that Burrow has been there, have started off very slowly every year. Because of injury, because of him slowly integrating back into the offense. The first year he was a rookie, yada, yada, yada. They always start off slow. But at some point during the middle of the season, they seem to find their stride, right? And they seem to go on this little mini run in the middle of the season to where they either separate themselves from those who are to be their competitors in the division, or they gain traction on those who are the leaders of the division. Right? And this year, that is the Baltimore Ravens and how they have started. So do we believe that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, if he is playing, and Joe Mixon and that very good Cincinnati defense can travel to San Francisco and take on a hobble San Francisco offensive team led by Sam Darnold, who is filling in for Brock Purdy, and CMC is still available. Debo is going to be out, but you have Brandon Ayuk there, who is their number one receiver. You still have Kittle. So Sam Darnold should still have the requisite weapons at his disposal if you believe that the San Francisco 49ers are still that team, right? And the 49ers are favored to win, heavily favored to win. I won't say heavily favored to win, but they're favored to win by 4.5 points, all right? So we should still believe that the 49ers and their home field advantage would do what it takes to take care of business, right? I don't know. We'll see at the end of the show as to whether or not the Bengals have what it takes. I believe they definitely have what it takes to be able to travel to Santa Clara and give the 49ers that third loss, really creating a little bit of havoc in Santa Clara and San Francisco as to what is really going on with this 49er defense. coming off of a 3-game losing streak, if that is what the case is come Monday morning, a lot of questions are going to be asked of the 49ers defense and what Mike Shanahan is going to do to correct that problem. You agree? I agree too, Troy. I would definitely keep it at that because don't be surprised. At the end of the day, Joe or Jamar Chase is holding up his 7-11 chain, smiling because he took advantage of Ward and that 49er defense. The blueprint has already been displayed. We saw it in Cleveland. We saw it again last weekend or Monday night in Minnesota when Kirk Cousins sliced and diced the 49er defense up. It's just terrible, right? So with the 49ers, we shall see. We got any questions from the audience there, Dolan, as to whether or not the feedback and the analysis that I provided on why I believe the 49ers could be in trouble, because we do have a backup, Sam Darnold. This will definitely prove that theory as to whether or not it is a plug-and-play offense that any quarterback can get behind center in Mike Shanahan's system and actually run the offense. We saw Jimmy G do it with success. We saw the young quarterback who was there for all of 2 minutes do it for a very limited amount of time before he got injured. Ended up shipping him off to Dallas. So is this Purdy's offense or is this Shanahan's offense? And we will see. I know a lot of people say that Purdy is a product of the system. Purdy is not a top 15 quarterback. And we shall see. Moving on, man. I really cannot wait until this game. It is going to be a late afternoon game on Sunday. And so after the early games have been taken care of, this should be a very entertaining game between the Bengals and the 49ers, and I am definitely looking forward to it. This one, the first big game of the day. The Los Angeles Rams are coming off of what a lot of people are calling a hair-scratcher when they went up against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week at home and were favored because the Pittsburgh Steelers have not outscored anyone in this entire league. And yet, some way, somehow, the Pittsburgh Steelers won that game. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are now 4-2 and are tied for the division lead by percentage points in their division behind the 5-2 or Baltimore Ravens. So, are the Rams able to travel down to Dallas? And Matthew Stafford, has he found his comfort zone with Cooper Kupp returning and his young receiver, Naka, who leads the team in receptions and yardage? Are they able to go down into Dallas and do what Dallas has not been able to do to anyone else, which is put on an offensive display that leaves no doubt. And after doing a little bit of research, I was somewhat surprised, right, that these quarterbacks, and regardless of the team, and I'm going to get to Dallas and Dak in a little bit, but these quarterbacks are not putting up the numbers that you would expect. We are into week 8 of the NFL. Some teams have played 7 games already. Most teams have played 6, depending on when their bye week falls. But we still have a lot of NFL starting quarterbacks in single digits as it pertains to the touchdown passes that they have passed this calendar year. Why is that? We still have a lot of quarterbacks are struggling to make big plays happen. Why is that? Why do you believe that a team that has multiple big-time players, multiple prime-time playmakers on its squad, and you're paying $40 to $50 million a year for a play caller, a quarterback who is supposed to be a seasoned professional, why are we having those struggles? Los Angeles Rams, I'm talking to you. Are you able to take advantage of a Dallas Cowboys team that many people believe have the talent to go all the way, but also believe that some way, somehow, Dallas will find a way to do it to themselves? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you. Dak is not going to do that to himself in the year 2023. But Dak is one of those same quarterbacks that has not thrown very many touchdowns. Dak has been very conservative this year, right? Let me check his stats. Dak has thrown for 6 touchdowns in 6 games. That is not good if you are a Dallas Cowboys fan. 6 touchdowns in 6 games. That is not good. I'm going to say that again. 6 touchdowns in 6 games. Granted, he only has 14 or 4 interceptions, but he's only thrown for 1,300 yards. Again, 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns in 6 games. So how does the Dallas Cowboys fix their offense to be able to not only shut down Matthew Stafford or returning Cooper Kupp, and an offense from the Los Angeles Rams that is just a couple of years removed from being Super Bowl champions? Now, granted, a lot of those weapons are no longer on the team, but you still have a young head coach who has proven that he can lead a team to the big dance and win. You still have a quarterback in Matthew Stafford that has a gun for an arm. And you still have Cooper Kupp, who is one of the best receivers in the National Football League. You have Knock, who is one of the best young receivers in the league. And a running game that neither team can lay claim to and say that it is a legitimate part of our offense. I thought the Dallas Cowboys were supposed to be heavy on the run this year. Apparently, they are not. Pollard has the same amount of rush yards as Lamar Jackson. Let that sink in. Pollard is the leading rusher for the Dallas Cowboys, and he has the same amount of rush yards as Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson is a quarterback. Let that sink in. Dallas Cowboys, you have to find your offense. No matter how good your defense is, no matter how dominant Michael Parsons may be as an individual player, no matter how collectively hard you are coming in against your opponents, if we do not find our offense, so don't make me cuss, the Rams are not going to get destroyed. Trust and believe Jerry Jones' team will find a way to keep this game close. It is not the Rams that the Rams are going to perform so well that Dallas is just not going to be able to outshine them. But the Dallas Cowboys will make this game close because they are habitual for playing either up to their competition or playing down to their competition. It is just part of the DNA of that star, I guess. I don't understand. They should rotate the other running backs, right? You should have a stable of running backs since you don't have a number one back that you can hang your hat on. This should be a running game by committee. And you should not be relying on the legs of Dak Prescott to make big key plays. They don't have anybody. But it doesn't have to be a big name. You put a body in there. You have the little 5'6" rookie who was brought into the backfield for a reason. All right. And we have to. And I know Griff would be saying this. You have to use CeeDee Lamb as what you have classified him as your number one receiver, right? I understand that he is the leading receiver on the team with 34 catches, but he has 1 touchdown in 6 games. CeeDee Lamb has 1 touchdown in 6 games. Granted, Dak only has 6 touchdowns in 6 games, but we have to be able to elevate our gameplay, right? And Mike McCarthy wanted this. He got rid of the offensive coordinator who led Dallas to the top-ranked scoring offense last year. And Mike McCarthy said that the Cowboys need to go in a different direction to ensure that when we play in January against San Francisco or whoever our playoff opponent is going to be, that we are competitive and ready to win. Well, I don't know that Mike McCarthy is actually playing NFL football or playing or calling NFL quality games. How can I be the only one and I still get past the 5-minute mark and get the whistle blown on me? Man, penalty flag on myself. Good freaking night. But we shall see how this game unfolds between the Rams and the Cowboys. I do not believe the Rams are going to get blown out, Troy. We shall see. Where's my wingman tonight? Man, Griff is out and about. He had a previous engagement to go and support an organization that he holds near and dear to his heart. So he could not be with us on this evening, but he did provide his commentary, and we share that later. All right, next big game that we want to talk about is another head scratcher. The Pittsburgh Steelers are welcoming in the 5-2 Jaguars, who are they ready for the big stage? That's a good question. That is a very good question. I personally believe that the Jaguars are ready for the big stage. And this is where they begin to separate themselves. This is where they begin to solidify the legitimacy that they believe that Doug Peterson has brought to this team. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Calvin Ridley, and the rest of the offensive weapons that Doug Peterson and the Jaguar ownership has surrounded Trevor Lawrence with is definitely coming into form. Like we've seen the Jacksonville Jaguars over the past several weeks go up against very good, legitimate defenses, regardless of whether or not they were playing at home, on the road, or in an international situation, playing a couple of weeks in London. They played against very good teams and have come out with victories in each one of those 3 games, which lets you know that Trevor Lawrence and the offensive game plan that Doug Peterson has put together is definitely working. And surprisingly enough, the one game that you would have expected them to win that they did not win was against the young up-and-coming Houston Texans team, who has shown themselves to be much better than everybody expected them to be at the very beginning of the year, which was justifiably so, because we have a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach, so you expected Houston to struggle. So the victory that they had over the Jaguars now, in retrospect, seems to be well earned. But did the Jaguars learn from that? Yes, they did. And they travel up to Heinz Field into Mike Tomlin's yard and not only take on a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is always defensively tough, but a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is surprising everyone. I mean, literally surprising everyone. They're 4-2. And as I mentioned earlier, they are fresh off the heels of traveling across the country into Los Angeles and beating the Los Angeles Rams, right? Don't know how. They couldn't even tell you, other than some great defensive play from T.J. Watt at opportune times, creating a defensive turnover and score. I don't believe Pickens still has made the connection, and Najee Harris's offensive firepower and running ability this year has been somewhat limited, right? Pickett, again, 5 touchdowns thrown in 6 games. 5 touchdowns thrown in 6 games for Kenny Pickett. Trevor Lawrence is not that much better himself. He's only thrown 8 touchdowns this year. But their running game has been somewhat solid, with their leading rusher being Travis Etienne. And as long as Travis Etienne stays healthy, then that is one of the most well-balanced teams in the league. The Jacksonville Jaguars are. And I look for them to have that balance on offense this weekend as they travel up to Heinz Field to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because the Steelers' defense is opportunistic, right? They're opportunistic, and they look to take advantage of situations. Their offense simply doesn't have it together enough. Pickett doesn't have the ability to take the time that he needs in the pocket. Pickens is the only one with the ability to not require separation on the Pittsburgh offense to go up for those 50-50 balls. And Najee Harris, like I said, he's their leading rusher this year, but he only has 300 yards. Again, 300 yards in 6 games. And he has scored only 1 touchdown. So Mike Tomlin definitely needs to come up with an offensive game plan. And I usually, by this point in the show, would have fired 1 or 2 coaches. And I still say that Matt Canada should be relieved of his duties as the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, that is part of the reason why they are having these offensive struggles that they are having this early in the season. But you can't knock it, right? Because they're winning. They're 4-2. Now, with that being said, the question still remains, as Troy put it, if Pittsburgh has Pittsburgh weather. No, I don't believe that to be the case, right? Weather is not going to be a factor until we are well into December. Teams playing in 40-degree weather means absolutely nothing because the temperature on the field is most likely in the 60s, and your body core temperature is going to elevate based on your activity. So it is far too early for Pittsburgh weather to be having Pittsburgh effects. Unless there is going to be a snowstorm this weekend somewhere, somehow in the Pittsburgh area, and the temperature is going to be in the 20s, I don't foresee weather being an issue. Because Jacksonville is far too good to allow inclement weather to play a part. Now, what legitimately gives Pittsburgh a shot to win this game on the offense? You have to ask the question, what can Matt Canada do? I simply don't see, just like I didn't see last weekend, how Pittsburgh had a legitimate shot because their offense is not where it needs to be. But they are in contention. I think the wheels begin to fall off a little bit this week, and they get exposed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I look for Jacksonville to have a lot of success, offensive success, in Pittsburgh, and we'll see whether or not Pittsburgh has what it takes to play deep into the 4th quarter. Who must be a Georgia fan there, Troy? As long as they're not, why are we benching Najee? Najee is their leading rusher. You just have to make sure that you're feeding Najee. You need to feed Najee more, right? That is the problem. Pittsburgh is not utilizing the weapons that they have. I would not bench Najee Harris. I would give him the ball more. I would create more opportunities for my run game since my pass game is not separating or getting the separation that you want, right? Just that way. All right, so we got to move on. We're a little bit behind on time. All right, so we are going to see whether or not the Jaguars can travel all the way up to Pittsburgh and came out of there with the dub and take control of the AFC South that everyone thinks that they're going to do. All right, so let's see if Trevor Lawrence has arrived, which he's going to be the next one with a big contract, and whether or not he can continue to earn it. Seattle and the Cleveland Browns. Man, this is a very good game. Why? Because I want to be able to see whether or not my Cleveland Browns, if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, and my number one defense, if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, even though I gave up 38 points last week to the Indianapolis Colts, can travel all the way to the left coast, going up against a 4-2 Seattle team that is very good. Not sneaky good, very good. Geno Smith and Pete Carroll and DK Metcalf and everyone else on the offensive flank for the Seattle Seahawks are not only distinguishing themselves to be legitimate offensive threats, but that vaunted defense that once was several years ago maybe trying to make a comeback, and don't let what's happening in San Francisco fool y'all and not alert you to what's happening in Seattle. Because in the blink of an eye, After this weekend, Seattle could be the NFC West leading Seattle Seahawks if they take care of business against the Cleveland Browns. Seattle is actually favored to win this game. Granted, they're only favored by 3 points, but Geno Smith is that guy this year. And if we look at the numbers and we break down the numbers, Geno is having a very, very productive year for Geno's standards, right? And Pete Carroll is calling an offensive game plan that not only is not putting Geno Smith in situations where he could create turnovers, even though he's had 4 interceptions this year, another one of those quarterbacks who is not lighting it up after he got that bag with only 7 touchdowns himself in the first 6 games. But he is winning the games that he is supposed to win as the starter. And that's all you can ask for in September and October and into early November, right? Because you're expected to put the team where it needs to be, get us in position to where we can close these games out. We don't want you to separate and actually win us a game until the big moments in late November, early December when we're jockeying for playoff position, right? And Deshaun Watson, I don't know what's going on with Deshaun and his shoulder, man. I'm starting to believe that Cleveland is having some buyer's remorse. This could possibly be a $230 million mistake. I don't know. Deshaun, it is a head scratcher. I mean, I don't know the extent of the young man's injury. I don't know whether or not it's worse than originally reported, but I don't see the motivation. I don't see the oomph. I don't see the drive to want to get back out onto the field. P.J. Walker is doing a very good job. He's 2-0. So he's doing something right. Do we think with that number 1 defense, all right, this is a question for the audience. Do we think that number 1 defense that the Cleveland has can travel to Seattle and not only slow down Pistol Pete Carroll, the fastest chew gumming coach in the West, but slow down his gunslinger quarterback? Geno, I don't answer, and I don't write back, Smith. Right? And that hulk of a receiver, DK Metcalf, in their legitimate running game. Right? Does that number 1 defense travel? Does Garrett travel and create turnovers? Because it's going to require Cleveland creating turnovers to keep themselves in this game. Otherwise, they'll be playing from behind. But they put up 39 points last week. So, man, we just don't know. I'm not sure whether or not DK played, Troy. I did not know that he was on an injury report, but we shall see. I'm looking at the injury report right now. Lockett is questionable. Jamal Adams is questionable. I do not see DK Metcalf on the injury report. So look for DK Metcalf to not only play, but look for DK Metcalf to have a pretty good game because he is going to be the focus of the offense. All right, and let's move on to the next big game, the Battle of New York. Jets, Jets, going up against the New York Football Giants. So much to talk about for this particular game, right? East Rutherford, New Jersey, where you have the Jets traditionally as heavy underdogs for this game, but in this particular game, they are huge fan favorites, one, and are actually favored by 3 points to win this game against the Giants, because the Giants are a dumpster fire, in my opinion. Right? You have a very good head coach in Dable. You have a solid run game, right? Because you have one of the best running backs in the game with Saquon Barkley. But you don't have an ownership group that supports the changes that the Giants need to make themselves compatible in the NFC East. And why do I say that, right? You chose to pay your quarterback $40+ million a year, guaranteeing or keeping him locked in, even though he's on the low scale of that $160 million deal. Now, only making 23, I believe, $24 million this year, and then it elevates to like 30 next year. And then the balloon payments come in for the last 2 years of his contract. So that way it was structured, I would say, was structured very well. But you put yourself in a position where your starting quarterback does not have the confidence of the offense. Your starting quarterback does not have the confidence of the locker room. And your starting quarterback is dealing with injuries. And during that time frame, just like any other age-old situation in the National Football League, we had a steaming Willie Beeman situation arise, right? Because on any given Sunday, anything can happen. Tyrod Taylor came in and had some success, and for the first time in the history of the New York Football Giants, the first time, ladies and gentlemen, the first time in the history of the football New York Giants, a black quarterback led them to a victory. Wow. Good job, Tyrod. Against the Buffalo Bills, right, who we saw at the beginning of the show, they are no longer a legitimate Super Bowl threat, in my opinion, because they are so wishy-washy, they cannot make any statements in any of their victories. Now, back to this particular game. The Jets are favored because the Jets have a Super Bowl caliber defense. The Jets defense will keep them in every single game this year. And I've been not screaming, but I've been saying that Zach Taylor is good enough, can be coached enough, both from the offensive coordinator and the head coach, Robert Saleh, and of course Aaron Rodgers as the real coach for this young quarterback. He is good enough to take them to the playoffs. Not good enough to win the division, but to be a wild card. And I've been saying that for the Jets to actually have a legitimate shot at the Super Bowl this year, that they needed to go out by the trade deadline and trade for Kirk Cousins. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with Kirk Cousins beating San Francisco last week on Monday Night Football and elevating the Minnesota Vikings to a hefty 3-4 record, they are going to ride it out. Kirk Cousins will not be traded. They're going to wait for Justin Jefferson to come back off of that hamstring injury here in a couple of weeks. They saw the Detroit Lions get slapped around by the Baltimore Ravens. They asked themselves, well, we know Kirk can give us 400 yards. We know Kirk can give us some really good offensive numbers. Let us ride with Kirk, and Kirk will no longer accept or desire a trade. You trying to make my Wilson is trash. Who is Wilson? Troy? What Wilson are you talking about? You talking about Zach Wilson? Zach Wilson is not trash. All right, Zach Wilson is not the number 2 overall pick that everybody made him out to be. He was more Mr. Irrelevant than Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. But I can Zach Wilson and Trey Lance to be the exact same, type of player. They have the potential. They just not have had the opportunity, and they got thrust into positions of perform now before they were ready, right? And Trey Lance, unfortunately, his torn ACL last year kind of derailed that for him. So we don't know how his season would have gone. But Zach Wilson is good enough to lead the New York Football Jets to a 10-7 record, which could be good enough for a wild card, depending on how the AFC plays out, man. So get off of Zach. You have a Jets run game led by Breece Hall that is just off the charts. You cannot stop it. Then you have Cook as his backup. Breece Hall is already well over 400 yards running. Zach Wilson is He does have more interceptions than he has touchdowns. So I will give you that, Troy. But again, you have to understand that they are intentionally not allowing Zach to throw and take big chances. Garrett Wilson will be a difference maker in this game. Garrett Wilson will make a big play from Zach Wilson, who will be the one to lead these Jets over the Giants. I'm going to go ahead and call this game right now. Next one, Kansas City traveling, and this is a very interesting game. Kansas City traveling to Denver. Take on Russ, Sean Payton, and your Denver Broncos. Let's ride. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and let me right off the bat and let everybody know that Russell Wilson is having a phenomenal season as compared to how Russell Wilson played last year. For the angst and the way that this season started off for both Russell Wilson and for Sean Payton, the one thing that Sean Payton is very good at is putting together an offensive game plan that will give his quarterback the opportunity to not only be successful, but give him an opportunity to flourish. And the Russell Wilson of 2023 as compared to the Russell Wilson of 2022 is completely night and day different, right? Because Russ has already thrown for 1,400 yards. Russell Wilson has 14 touchdowns, let me correct myself. Russell Wilson has thrown for 1,500 yards, has 13 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions in 6 games. Right? Now, in 7 games. I take that back. And has led his team to being competitive other than a couple of blowouts that their defense simply could not make up. We came into this season, right? If you were a student of the game, we came into the season. Yeah, we got Kansas City. Everybody's gonna pick Kansas City to win this game. All right, so it's not really going out there, Troy. Way to take a leap of faith. I know you picked Kansas City in the blowout. That was really. I'm making the case for Kansas City to be, or for Denver to be in this game in the fourth quarter. Don't be surprised. Everybody, as Chris Berman used to say, so you're all on the Chiefs. I know Griff is going to pick the Chiefs. This might be my trap game. This might be my trap game pick for the week. So be on the lookout. All right. Kansas City got this. Okay, Harold. Don't be surprised. Hey, Uncle Charlie is the man, right? Uncle Charlie Wilson. All right, so moving on, man. I got it. Kansas City Chiefs are supposed to win this game. We shall see. All right. Before we head on into our picks, this last game that I want to talk about is Philadelphia Eagles traveling down to Washington to take on your Washington Commanders. The Philadelphia Eagles are 6-1. The Washington Commanders are 3-4. The Washington Commanders are struggling, but so are the Eagles. Right? If we look at quarterbacks side by side, Jalen Hurts has the same numbers that Sam Howell has. Jalen Hurts has the same number of touchdowns that Sam Howell has. Jalen Hurts has more interceptions than Sam Howell has. So, is Jalen Hurts a better quarterback statistically than Sam Howell? That's not even a legitimate question. I'm using that as a metaphor as to why there is such a huge disparity between the 6-1 Eagles and the 3-4 Commanders. We don't believe that the Commanders are going to be competitive. There go my man Griff with a nice bow tie.
Hey, man, what's going on, boy? What's going on with you, man? Hey, bro, I apologize for leaving you out there all by yourself tonight, but duty calls.
We are having great discussions, man, back and forth. Both Troy, Harold, and Karen, they're not even giving these underdogs a legitimate shot. As soon as the game comes up, they're already picking the winner and saying next, man. We got to give these teams a chance, right? Where you at, man? How you doing this evening?
Hey man, I'm doing real good, man. I just finished being a guest speaker here at this military ball. They just started the formal portion, but I said, let me come on here. I know my boy's near the end. Let me go ahead and jump on as much as I can with him. Just to, I know you near the end right now. So you telling me you still on the picks right now?
Yeah, we just about to come into the picks, man. So the video clip that you sent of your picks, you don't have to do that. We can go ahead and let you go ahead
Nah,
and get your picks right now.
yes, sir. Well, I'm gonna be quick with mine because I got to get back in here, but I wanted to come out here for the picks because I know how much Troy need to hear me do it. So I'm gonna go ahead. Look, this how I'm gonna catch up. I'm going with the Bengals, man. I got the
Okay.
Cowboys over the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Jaguars over the Steelers. I heard you talking about them a little bit. Yeah, I got the Jag. Look, I got Seattle over Cleveland, and PJ Walker I do not trust. And hey, I'm gonna be honest, man, because this is a home game for both of them. I'm going with the Giants. With Tyrod Taylor, I like the Giants. I like the way that they look.
Really?
Kansas City
Okay.
and the Eagles over the Commodores. They ain't the Commanders, man. They the Commodores, bro.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, I tell you what, man, those are some very interesting picks. You said the Bengals over the 49ers, right? Because of Sam Darnold. I think we are on the same sheet of music. I'm going with the Bengals as well in an upset over the 49ers, even though the 49ers are favored. I'm going with the Cowboys at home. Dak, don't mess this up. I got faith in you. I'm pulling for you, Dak. Let's do this. I got the Jaguars being able to travel up to Pittsburgh and give Mike Tomlin that L. Right? No matter how many motivational speeches Mike Tomlin can give, I still think they're taking L this week. You don't trust PJ Walker.
I'm not a PJ Walker fan, and the defense gonna get tired.
You're right. I got to go with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith this weekend taking care of business up in Seattle. So I'm going with Seattle. I got the Jets, baby. Jets. I believe in Zach Wilson and Zach we trust. Come on, Zach. Don't let me down, Zach. Don't let me look like that. Zach is the man. We're going to go with the Jets for this weekend. Kansas City Chiefs in a close one. Closer than people think. The Denver Broncos are going to put up some good offensive numbers this weekend. Look for us to have some success. And then the Eagles over the Commanders, Commodores, the Magic, Showtime, Washington team up there. So I look for possibly that coach getting fired this weekend. So let Miles, if Miles is at the event with you, let him know I'm firing 2 coaches tonight. So just let Miles know that I'm firing 2 coaches tonight.
Hey, I let it be known that Miles pulled me away from the show tonight. I let the whole audience, about 400 people in here, and he said he gonna make it up to you.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I don't want to hold you back. I know you got to get back up in there. We appreciate you taking a couple of minutes out tonight to share your thoughts on this weekend's game. And y'all have a blessed night over there, man.
Hey, man, thank you, my brother, and all those that joined in tonight. I appreciate y'all for y'all continued support, man. Y'all have a great weekend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Safe travel back home. All right. We only got about 7 minutes left in the show. So let's transition to the important games this weekend. The games this weekend on Saturday. We're only going to highlight 3 big games this weekend on the collegiate level. All right. And I want to talk about these for a specific reason and what they mean to each team. All right. Let's start off the big game between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Florida Gators. This has been a tradition between Georgia and Florida where we have this cocktail party in Jacksonville every year. That regardless of where these 2 teams are ranked, you know that you're going to have a very interesting game. And we've heard a lot of knocks about Georgia this week and this year that they haven't earned the number 1 ranking. They have not played anyone yet. Karen, your team, my love, Kim, your team, have not proven themselves to be worthy of that number 1 ranking, right? And we say, well, you only can play the schedule that has been laid out in front of you. And as a two-time defending national champ, I would have created a schedule to where I could have some gumption, but that's just me. I'm not going to take the easy road, but that's y'all do what y'all want to do. But this is going to be a big test for them, right? Because Florida opened the season getting shellacked over there by Utah, who has a big game themselves this weekend coming up that I will highlight. But they have performed or shown themselves to be somewhat competitive, right? They have a 5-2 overall record, a 3-1 conference record, and are going to be very competitive this weekend. Why? Because this is our rivalry game against our biggest SEC opponent, the Georgia Bulldogs, who just so happen to be the number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs, who just so happen to not have at their disposal their best player, who many argue to be the best tight end in college football, Bowers. And you still have a first-year quarterback. So does Florida legitimately have a shot? I don't know. Florida is not favored, obviously. Georgia is favored by 2 touchdowns. Heavily favored by the fans. So are we going to see a game between Georgia and Florida in the fourth quarter that is going to be close? Or does Georgia take care of business and are coasting by the time we get into the fourth quarter? Karen, you're the Georgia Bulldogs fan in the chat tonight, right? You openly admit that y'all haven't played anybody. When you make statements that my dogs better win, that shows that you're not as confident as you should be. I'm just going to let you know that. So all I'm going to say is don't be surprised if Florida wins this game. But I'm still going to pick Georgia. I'm still going with the number 1 ranked Georgia. And I'm still going to pick them. I see you, Steven. You're a Georgia fan. So you can be honest and tell us why your Georgia Bulldogs decided to take a high school schedule this year. I don't know. Other than the mandatory SEC games that y'all have to play. Y'all haven't even played the best SEC teams. You even avoid playing in the best SEC teams. But I got it. You're in the East. I'm not gonna bash you. But yes, we are going with the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend over the Florida Gators. Next game, Dylan, real quick. All right, the Oregon Ducks traveling up to Utah to take on the Utah Utes, right? The Utah Utes have 1 loss this season. The Oregon Ducks have 1 loss this season, right? They both had statement victories. Utah closed the door on the USC season last weekend, in my opinion, right? Oregon had that huge statement victory against Colorado when they were ranked and had a narrow loss against the Washington Huskies. Even though Oregon is favored to win this game this weekend by 6, you are going into Utah. You are going into the hometown and into the stadium of a team that is not afraid of, can go play for play. Now, Oregon does have more speed and more talent and should win this game, but do not be surprised if Utah takes care of business. And this is going to be prime time, middle of the afternoon, 3:30 Sunday afternoon on Fox for the Georgia-Florida game, 3:30 Saturday afternoon on CBS, Saturday afternoon for Oregon as well. So 2 very good games on Saturday afternoon to kind of whet that fancy if you are a huge college football fan. All right, the last game, primetime Saturday night, taking it to the left coast, we are going to see the Colorado Buffaloes traveling to La La Land to take on the UCLA Bruins in the Coliseum. And whether or not the prime train, the prime coach train, has created enough buzz. We know that financially it has created an astronomical amount of buzz. We're talking upwards of $200 million in revenue created in 2 months by the prime effect. But that aside, does his team and his young quarterback, who is having a phenomenal season, I pulled up Shadura's numbers, 2,400 yards. He has thrown for 2,400 yards and 24 touchdowns. and only 3 interceptions. The knock on Shedeur is that he holds the ball too long. So that to not get interceptions, how's that stat pad when you don't want interceptions? I don't get it. All right. But the accuracy that he has and the weapons that he has available to him definitely make this game more competitive than what people are saying. People are not giving Colorado much of a chance, right? We have UCLA as 15-point favorites. I do not believe that UCLA is going to cover one. I do believe that this is going to be another huge game for the Colorado Buffaloes, and that they are going to make another huge statement on the national stage, primetime Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on ABC. So look forward to Colorado Buffaloes to pull off an upset in UCLA against the Bruins this weekend. Why? Because it's primetime, baby. And Colorado is healthy. They are healthy again. So we shall see whether or not my predictions work out. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. No, seriously, the time has come. Thank you for joining not only myself tonight, but Griff, and the interaction and the commentary that you shared throughout tonight's show only makes the connection better that we have with each and every one of you, because it lets you know that we not only value the time that you give us, but the thoughts that you are sharing, albeit some of it is way out there in left field, Troy. We still welcome it because it only helps us to heighten our collective football education. So hopefully your team has a very good weekend, regardless of who you're playing this weekend, and whether it's on the collegiate level, high school level, if you're playing tonight, or on the national football level. May you have much success. Take care of yourselves this weekend. Take care of each other. Do something nice for someone, please, because the world is crazy out there. And we shall see you right back here on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Y'all be breezy.